What's up, guys? It's Zach here again with Zach Chavis Films, and today I am finally making another video in the middle of a busy wedding season, but I figured I'd want to talk about a topic today that I feel like is becoming more and more talked about every day with the release of new cameras, release of new lenses. But this is for those of you who are in the beginning stages of a wedding videography business, or if you're 10 years into it. But the video topic today is, what is the best camera body to choose for wedding videographers? But this isn't going to be focused on the camera brand, but more so about what to look for when buying the camera that you want to get. And this, of course, can be broken down into different categories. There's so many things to look for, but I kind of just took the main things that I think are very important when choosing a camera body. And the first one I want to start with is low light performance. The camera that I use, of course, is the Sony FX3, which has very, very good low light performance. Low light performance, guys, just if you don't know, means how well and how sharp your camera still remains in low light. So of course, the higher up in ISO that you have to go when you're getting these low light situations, your camera may get what they call noisy. This includes grain, the colors may begin to look murky, and you might not have the best image possible. Now, of course, there are other things that you can do to clean this up in post-processing, but I'm always of the impression that you want to get the image as correct as possible in camera. And the FX3 allows me to do that. So the base ISOs, or the two ISO numbers that your camera performs best at, and for the FX3, it's 800 on the low end and 12,800 on the high end. And in between those, you still get good images, but those two images, or those two ISOs, are where the camera cleans up the most. And you can imagine that 12,800 is incredibly useful for wedding days. So, you know, the reception, of course, when the sun goes down and you don't have the best lighting, maybe you have some external lighting that you bring, which I highly recommend, but you still might need a little bit more ISO to give your image more color, more light, and more crispness. This is where the FX3 comes in handy. Now, there's a ton of other cameras that have been improving, drastically in ISO. Canon has some great cameras that do well in a low light situation. Panasonic, I believe the camera that they have right now that's great in low light performance is the Panasonic S1 II, just releases a great low light camera as well. But this is just something to look for when you're comparing cameras online and seeing which one is best for you. So just make sure that it does well in low light situations. Another big thing, and maybe one of the bigger things that doesn't get talked about enough, is overheating. So as you can imagine, on a wedding day, there's not much room for error and there's not much room for overheating, especially in very high pressure situations like a ceremony, particularly during a first kiss. I'm sure that gives everyone anxiety. Is my camera gonna overheat? Is my camera gonna shut off in a very extremely important moment? So I would recommend buying a camera that has a fan. There are plenty of cameras that don't have a fan that have been through rigorous overheating tests and stood the test of time, but it gives me great sense of peace knowing that the camera I use has a fan and has great reviews as far as overheating, and I have never had that issue, knock on wood, but I've never had an overheating issue with the FX3, ever. And I've been in very humid, hot situations here in Virginia, 99-degree wedding days where the ceremony's been 45 minutes or longer, and I haven't had any issues of overheating with this camera. Again, knock on wood. Other cameras that have fans include, again, the Panasonic S1 II, and I'm only saying that camera because I've been really, really impressed with some of the things that Panasonic has released. I think the Canon R5C also has a fan in it, but again, when you're doing weddings, you're dealing with big contracts, you're dealing with very high pressure situations where you cannot necessarily redo them. I think it pays to have peace of mind knowing that you have the right equipment for the right situation. So make sure you get a camera that doesn't overheat, preferably has a fan on it. Frame rates. So if you don't know much about frame rates, and when I mean frame rates, I'm particularly speaking about 24 frames a second, 60 frames a second, or 120 frames per second. Now, if you are unaware of what these mean, I'd maybe suggest kind of doing a deep dive into fully understanding why you would shoot in these scenarios. But in general, if you want to shoot something in slow motion, you would shoot it at 60 frames a second and then slow it down. The standard frame rate for most filmmakers that they use is 24 frames a second. This is what our natural eye sees in. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you do want to have a lot of slow motion clips, because a lot of people do, and I know that's a thing that a lot of people saying that cinematic or the cinematic way to shoot is 24 frames a second. But yes, there are still times where a beautiful slow motion shot has its place in a wedding film, I think. So I don't think it's wise to commit to either or and not be able to bend or break the rules every now and then. I think there's times for 24, I think there's times for 60, but I rest my case. But some cameras either don't shoot at 4K 60 frames per second, or if they do, there's a bit of a crop, which, you know, that could be a big deal for you in certain scenarios. So I'd recommend looking to see if the camera that you're looking at is capable of shooting at 4K 60, and if it is, does it have a crop? You know, does the image crop in when you shoot at 60 frames a second? And then, you know, icing on the cake is if the camera shoots at 120 frames a second. You know, I mean, is it necessary? No, but it's good to know that if it's capable of shooting at 4K 120, and again, is there a crop that comes with that? So just something to look for. Color science. Now, I'm not gonna go too far into this. I am not a colorist, and you know, this topic is extremely in-depth, and I'm sure there's a lot of Gerald Undone videos where you can learn more about this. But in general, you know, I would look for a camera that has 422 10-bit color. The alternative to this is 8-bit. And what this means is that you have more range of colors to work with when you're color grading. And by now, hopefully you're shooting in log. And if you're not, I'd highly recommend so to get the best out of your camera. But when you start to learn how to color grade and really bring those films to life with that color grading process, you really appreciate the 10-bit color and just how much you're able to do with that. You know, with the highlights and the shadows and what you're able to give, the looks you're able to give your films. So, you know, look for 10-bit. Guys, I can't speak for every camera. Honestly, I'm not well versed in every single camera brand, but you know, at this point, it really doesn't matter. A lot of these cameras are extremely capable. And it's a new camera coming out every single day. I just wanted to give you guys some basis of what to look for when buying a camera. Because I know it's overwhelming. You see all these new cameras coming out, and you see a lot of people arguing which brand is the best, but nobody really dives into the specifics of what make those cameras great. There's so many other things, but these are the basics to look for and what you might need on a wedding day. Some other good things about the FX3 that I truly enjoy are little things like the tally lights that come on when you start recording. So there's these big red lights that come on once you press record on the FX3, and you know, for forgetful people like me, this helps to make sure that you know you're recording. And judge me if you want, but you know, it's often an easy thing to do if you are hustling and bustling, especially if you're shooting a wedding by yourself. There's so much going on. You're checking audio levels, you're making sure tripods are good, you're making sure that everything's good to go for the ceremony, and one of your cameras could just not be rolling after you thought you were. Same thing with a mic or a task cam, you know. But having this big red flashing light to remind you that you're recording, it's a big game changer for me. I also love the custom buttons and the custom menus that you can assign on the FX3, how easy it is for me to switch frame rates if I need to with these saved modes that I have in the menu button. It definitely does make a difference when I want to get a quick shot in slow motion at 60 frames a second and then want to quickly switch back to 24 frames a second. That goes a long way. Like I said, if you're by yourself and your hands are full, you want to be able to quickly do things and move to the next shot, especially if you're working along with a photographer who also needs to get shots in a timely manner. So guys, that's it for today. There's a bunch of other things that I could include into this list, and you're more than welcome to add them into the comments for others to have. I'm gonna do some other videos about the lens choices for wedding days, but I just kind of wanted to get you the basis of what camera to use, because of course this is at the center of everything when building out your kit for a wedding day. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to bring you more content on the next video. Thanks guys.